If you hold dual citizenship or you are thinking about getting a second passport, I need you to pause everything for a moment because 2026 has introduced major modifications that could quietly affect your travel, your taxes, your documentation, and in rare situations, even your ability to move freely across borders. The regulations have shifted, reporting rules have tightened, and passport procedures are changing in ways many people still do not know about. If you are not aware of these new expectations, you could face delays at airports, unexpected questions at border control, financial penalties, or situations that become far more stressful than they needed to be. What I am about to share with you is not meant to scare you. It is meant to prepare you. These updates matter because they affect millions of people around the world who live, study, work, visit family, and build their futures across more than one country. So stay with me until the end. Take a deep breath and let us walk through this together slowly, clearly, and calmly. If you find this video helpful, please hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications, and give it a like so you never miss important updates delivered straight to your smartphone. Now, let us get into the video. Welcome to US Immigration Info, your trusted source for clear, accurate, and compassionate immigration guidance. My goal here is simple: to make complex immigration information feel understandable, grounded, and manageable for everyone navigating these challenging systems. Today, I am going to explain what is changing in the world of dual citizenship, who is affected by these new regulations, when these updates matter most, and most importantly, what you should and should not do next. I know immigration topics can feel overwhelming. The words sound complicated, the rules do not always seem fair, and sometimes it feels like one wrong step could create big problems that affect your entire future. If you have ever worried about using the wrong passport at the airport, not knowing what the government expects you to report, or whether a change in law could suddenly affect your status, you are not alone in those concerns. Many people feel the same way, lying awake at night wondering if they missed something important or made a mistake without realizing it. The good news is this: information brings clarity, and clarity brings calm. Not every change applies to everyone. Not every update is negative. And understanding the rules ahead of time gives you confidence instead of fear. Knowledge is truly the most powerful tool you have when navigating immigration systems that can sometimes feel designed to confuse rather than help. So let us start at the foundation and build upward from there with a clear understanding of what we are actually talking about. Before we discuss new reporting requirements or passport changes, it is important to understand what dual citizenship really means in simple human language that everyone can grasp. Dual citizenship or dual nationality means you are legally recognized as a citizen of two countries at the same time. That can happen in different ways depending on circumstances and family history. Some people are born in one country to parents from another, automatically acquiring citizenship in both places from the moment they take their first breath. Some marry and gain citizenship through their spouse after years of building a life together in a new country. Some naturalize after living abroad while still keeping their original citizenship, maintaining connections to both the land of their birth and their chosen home. Others have children born overseas who automatically gain citizenship in more than one country from birth, creating new generations of dual nationals without anyone really planning for it. For many people, dual citizenship is a blessing that enriches their lives in countless ways. It allows easier travel between countries that might otherwise require lengthy visa applications and uncertain approvals. It keeps families connected across oceans and continents, allowing grandparents to visit grandchildren without bureaucratic obstacles. It preserves cultural identity and heritage, ensuring that ties to ancestral homelands remain strong even as new roots grow in different soil. And it opens opportunities for work, education, business, and security that would otherwise remain closed. In most situations, especially in the United States, dual citizenship is allowed and recognized. The US acknowledges that you can hold another nationality without automatically giving up your US citizenship, and millions of Americans live their lives holding passports from two different nations. But, and this is where things become important to understand clearly, having two citizenships sometimes means having two sets of responsibilities that do not always align perfectly. Two governments may want certain information from you. Two countries may have rules about passports, travel records, taxes, or reporting that do not always look the same or coordinate with each other. And as technology improves and countries share more data than ever before through international agreements and information sharing protocols, the systems that track travel, identity, and financial transparency have become more connected than at any previous point in human history. That is why these 2026 updates matter so much and deserve your careful attention. They are not about punishing people who hold multiple citizenships. They are about security, identity verification, fraud prevention, and financial reporting in an increasingly interconnected world. But when systems tighten, people who do not understand the rules may accidentally create problems for themselves. A missed form, a passport that does not match another document, a trip booked without checking validity dates. Small details can cause big headaches if you simply did not know what was expected of you. So, as we continue through this important information, remember this fundamental truth. Dual citizenship itself is not the problem. Having more than one passport is legal in many cases and brings tremendous benefits to those who hold multiple citizenships. What matters is awareness of the rules, accuracy in your documentation, and honesty in your dealings with government authorities. If something feels confusing, you are absolutely not alone in that feeling. Many highly educated people with advanced degrees and successful careers struggle to understand immigration rules, and that is completely okay. These systems are genuinely complex, and no one should feel ashamed for finding them difficult to navigate. My goal is to guide you calmly through each update, help you recognize where you might need to pay attention, and remind you that information is your strongest protection against unnecessary problems. We will move step by step through everything you need to know, and I will explain what changed, who it affects, and how to stay prepared without fear or panic. Now, let us begin talking about one of the biggest areas where people with dual citizenship need to be much more aware than they might have been in previous years. Reporting requirements have become significantly more important and more strictly enforced than ever before. Over the last few years, governments around the world, including the United States, have strengthened the systems they use to track financial transparency and identity reporting. This is not about targeting immigrants or dual citizens specifically. It is mainly about preventing fraud, money laundering, tax evasion, and misuse of international financial systems by criminals who exploit the complexity of cross-border finance. But the reality is, when rules tighten for everyone, ordinary people sometimes get caught in the middle simply because they did not understand what needed to be reported or when. If you are a US citizen, whether you live inside the United States or outside the country in another nation, the US expects you to report your worldwide income. That means if you earn money in another country through employment, business, investments, or any other source, have a bank account overseas that exceeds certain thresholds, or hold investments outside the US, there are times when those must be disclosed to US authorities, even if taxes are also paid in another country. Dual citizenship does not remove those obligations, and in some situations, it can make reporting slightly more complex, because you may have legitimate financial ties to multiple nations. For some people, the idea of reporting foreign accounts feels scary or even threatening, but in reality, most people are not being punished for having a bank account back home in their country of origin. The real issue happens when someone has accounts, assets, or business interests and does not report them when they legally should have done so. That is where delays, penalties, and stressful letters from authorities can begin to arrive and create genuine problems. Over recent years, data sharing agreements between countries have become stronger and more comprehensive than ever before. Financial institutions in many parts of the world now cooperate with the United States when they detect accounts owned by U.S. persons, sharing information through established legal channels. That means it is getting harder and honestly unnecessary to try to hide things from authorities who have access to international data. What matters is not fear, but clarity about your obligations and responsibilities. If you are unsure whether something needs to be reported, that does not make you a criminal or someone who has done something wrong. It simply means you need accurate information from reliable sources. Keeping copies of financial statements, knowing where your money is located, and staying honest when filling out forms already protects you more than you might realize. And remember, not everyone is affected in the same way by these reporting requirements. Many people with dual citizenship have simple situations with modest accounts and straightforward finances and never run into any problems whatsoever. If you feel lost or confused about what applies to you, you are absolutely not alone, and seeking guidance is a sign of responsibility, not weakness. Now, let us shift into something every dual citizen eventually experiences when they travel internationally. Travel, passports, and border rules are areas where misunderstandings are extremely common and can cause unnecessary stress. And yet, the core rule itself is actually quite simple once you understand it. If you are a U.S. citizen, the United States requires you to enter and leave the country using your U.S. passport. Even if you also hold citizenship in another country, even if you have a valid visa in that other passport, and even if you travel with both passports in your hand or bag, when you step up to U.S. immigration at any port of entry, the document you present must be your U.S. passport. For many people, this feels strange at first. They ask, why can I not just use my other passport if it is valid, and I am entitled to use it? The answer is that the U.S. views you as a U.S. citizen first when you are entering the country. Using another passport to enter could create confusion, unnecessary questioning, or delays, because from the U.S. perspective, you are trying to enter as a foreign visitor, when in reality, you are not a visitor at all, but rather a returning citizen with full rights to enter. At the same time, the other country where you also hold citizenship often has a similar expectation for its own nationals. Most countries prefer that their citizens enter and exit using their own national passport as well, for the same reasons of clarity and proper documentation. So in practical terms, dual citizenship usually means using one passport when you leave one country and the other passport when you arrive in the other. This switching between documents is completely normal and legal. For example, a dual citizen traveling between two countries may leave one country using that country's passport, then present the second passport upon arrival in the other nation. This can sometimes feel confusing or even slightly stressful, but it is the normal and expected way that dual citizens travel internationally. Where problems happen is when a passport is expired, nearly expired, or contains a name that does not match other documents such as airline tickets or visa records. Add to that new passport security features, biometric checks at modern airports, and stronger verification systems that cross-reference multiple databases, and you begin to understand why travelers are being asked more questions than before, and why documentation accuracy matters so much. None of this automatically means you are in trouble if something does not go perfectly smoothly. Often, it simply means systems are verifying identity more carefully than they did in previous years, and a brief additional conversation resolves everything. One more thing to keep in mind is passport validity requirements. Many countries require that your passport be valid for at least 6 months beyond your intended stay in their territory. Airlines check this rule before boarding because they can be fined heavily if they fly someone who is later refused entry at their destination. So even if you think my passport still has a few months left, and that should be enough, a gate agent or immigration officer may see it differently and deny you boarding or entry. Renewing early is almost always safer than waiting until the last minute, especially if you hold two passports and will be switching between them while traveling internationally. Staying calm, staying prepared, and planning ahead prevents most problems long before they ever reach the airport desk or immigration counter. Another area that quietly changed for many travelers, including dual citizens, involves security checks and biometric verification at borders and airports around the world. Over the last few years, passports around the world have begun including more advanced security features, digital chips containing personal information, and biometric data designed to protect identity and prevent fraud. You may notice new machines at airports scanning faces, fingerprints, or digital passport chips, instead of relying only on manual stamping and visual inspection by officers. For most travelers, these systems actually make travel safer and sometimes faster by reducing wait times and streamlining verification processes. But they also mean that mismatched information becomes easier for authorities to notice and flag for additional review. If your name is written differently on two passports due to different naming conventions in different countries, if your date of birth records do not match exactly due to different calendar systems or recording errors, or if past travel entries do not appear consistent with what would be expected, the system may flag you for extra questions or secondary screening. That does not automatically mean you did something wrong or that you are in trouble. Often, it simply means the system wants to verify that two records truly belong to the same person and that there is no fraud or identity confusion occurring. Technology is catching small details that older manual systems often ignored or missed, and sometimes that can feel intimidating when you are the person being questioned while other travelers walk past without delay. In moments like that, the most important thing is calm honesty and patience. Answer clearly and directly. Show your documents when requested. Explain briefly why something looks different if asked. Maybe your name changed after marriage. Maybe one country formats names differently with family names first or middle names handled differently. Maybe you renewed your passport recently and the number changed from your previous document. These are normal human situations that happen to millions of people and are easily explained. Extra screening does not automatically mean a problem is coming or that you will be denied entry. It usually means identity is being checked more carefully because the new systems rely on accuracy and consistency across records. And remember, countries are increasingly sharing travel information with each other through international agreements and data sharing protocols. Border control may already see where you traveled last month or which passport you used on your previous trip before you even hand over your documents. That is not meant to punish you or invade your privacy unreasonably. It is part of global security and fraud prevention efforts that benefit everyone by making travel documents more secure and identity fraud more difficult. Awareness simply helps you avoid panic when something takes a few extra minutes and an officer asks questions you did not expect. If an officer asks questions, it is not a personal attack or accusation. It is part of their standard process for certain situations. Breathe, stay respectful and cooperative, and let the system do what it needs to do. The vast majority of these interactions end with you continuing on your way without any problems. Now, let us quietly shift to a topic that worries some dual citizens and their families: military service obligations in certain countries around the world. Not every country requires it, but some nations still have compulsory military service for their citizens, including dual nationals who may not even live there full-time or who grew up entirely in another country. If you hold citizenship in a country that has mandatory conscription laws, you could technically be expected to follow those rules when you visit or reside there, especially if you are of eligible age for service. For many families, this comes as a complete surprise that catches them unprepared. Someone may have grown up in another country, barely speak the language of their other citizenship, have never lived there as an adult, and suddenly discover that they are still considered eligible for military service under that nation's laws. It can feel frightening and confusing, especially when those obligations conflict with work, education, or family life in the United States, or when the political situation in that country is unstable or concerning. From the U.S. perspective, Dual citizenship alone does not automatically create a problem for your U.S. status. However, serving in certain positions or engaging with a foreign military under specific circumstances can complicate things, particularly if there is political tension or security risk involved between the United States and that other nation. These cases are relatively rare in the overall population of dual citizens, but serious enough that they deserve awareness and careful consideration before making any decisions. If your other country has military requirements, the best approach is not to panic and not to ignore it either. Contact the embassy or consulate of that country and ask clear questions about your status and obligations. Many nations have exemptions, deferments, waivers, or special rules for citizens who primarily live abroad and have not resided in the country for extended periods. And if you feel uncertain about whether fulfilling or refusing those obligations could affect your situation in the United States, speaking with a qualified professional who understands both systems can give you reassurance and guidance before acting. The most important message is simple. Do not assume you know the rules. Do not let fear paralyze you into inaction. And do not make rushed decisions based on incomplete information. Seek accurate information, understand your position clearly, and move carefully with full awareness of the consequences. Honesty is always your safest path through any immigration situation. When forms ask whether you hold another citizenship or whether you have participated in any government roles or foreign elections, answer truthfully and completely. Problems usually arise not because someone voted in a foreign election, which is generally acceptable, but because something important was not disclosed when asked on an official form or during an interview. Staying transparent prevents issues before they begin and protects you from accusations of fraud or misrepresentation that could have serious consequences. The good news is that awareness helps prevent these problems. Reporting a birth abroad promptly, keeping copies of important records in safe locations, applying for passports early while documentation is fresh, and making sure names and dates match across all documents protects children from stress and complications later in their lives. And even if the paperwork was not completed at the time of birth, it does not always mean everything is lost. There may still be paths to correct, confirm, or claim status with the right guidance and patience. Though the process becomes more complicated, the longer it is delayed. The key message is simple. Document early, double-check details carefully, and keep everything in one safe place where it can be found when needed. Children depend on adults to protect their future identity. Taking the time now prevents confusion, complicated interviews, and emotional frustration later in life when that young person needs their documentation for important life events. Some people with dual citizenship eventually wonder whether they should give up one of their nationalities, usually because they feel overwhelmed by rules, paperwork, or taxes associated with maintaining two citizenships. Renouncing citizenship sounds simple when you hear it discussed online or see it mentioned casually in comments, but in reality, it is one of the most serious and permanent decisions a person can make in their lifetime. Once you formally renounce a citizenship, you are not simply taking a break from it. You are closing a door that often cannot be reopened, regardless of how much you might regret the decision later. None of this means renunciation is always wrong. For a small number of people with specific circumstances, it genuinely makes life simpler and removes burdens they no longer wish to carry. But it should never be rushed, never done out of fear or frustration, and never decided based only on something heard in a video or read on social media where the full implications may not be explained. When decisions affect your entire life and your children's lives in permanent ways, it is wise to slow down, ask questions, gather complete information, and fully understand the long-term consequences before doing anything that cannot be undone. That is why staying informed matters so much. Information does not solve every problem, but it turns fear into preparation and confusion into clarity. When you hear about a new rule, you can pause, listen, and understand whether it applies to you rather than rushing into panic. When something feels unclear, You can ask for guidance instead of guessing. And when your journey feels tiring, you can remind yourself that progress with immigration is often slow, but it does move forward. Be patient with yourself. Be kind to yourself. You are doing your best inside systems that are complex, even for professionals who work in this field every day. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is simply stay calm, stay organized, and continue learning one step at a time. As we wrap up today's update, let us bring everything back to the core message. Dual citizenship is not a mistake. It is not a problem by itself. But 2026 brings stronger reporting expectations, more careful passport verification, and systems that now communicate with each other more than ever before. That means small details matter. Renewing early matters, being honest matters, keeping documents organized matters, and making decisions slowly, thoughtfully, and with awareness protects you far more than fear ever will. If something you heard today applies to you, do not rush, do not assume, and do not panic. Simply note it, learn more, and move forward carefully. Immigration journeys can be stressful, complicated, and emotional, but they are also journeys of courage and resilience. Staying informed is one of the best ways to protect your freedom to travel, your ability to plan, and your peace of mind. If today's update helped you feel clearer or calmer, I am truly glad. Sharing information like this can help others too. So, if you feel comfortable, consider liking this video or passing it along to someone who may benefit from it. And if you want steady, calm explanations of U.S. immigration news, visa updates, and citizenship guidance, you are always welcome to stay connected here. If you have a question, an experience, or a situation you are unsure about, feel free to share in the comments. Your story might help someone else realize they are not alone. Thank you for being here today, for trusting this channel with your time, and for staying informed about something so important to your life and your future. That is all we have for this bulletin. U.S. Immigration Info Channel provides all necessary visa information and procedures for your U.S. immigration journey. It is important to understand the United States immigration processing steps, visa application requirements, processing times, forms, fees, and more. We will continue to provide all information about U.S. visitor visas such as B1 and B2, work visas such as L1A, L1B, and H1B, student visas, green cards, immigrant visas, EB1, EB2, EB3, EB4, and EB5, and family immigrant visas. If you have not already, please subscribe to U.S. Immigration Info Channel. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next video.